Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the finance module of our open source church management application. We'll hop in and we'll take a look at it. We have our finances module selected here in our menu. And in our finance module, we have a manual that gives some details about how to use the module. But we'll hop into this because there's quite a bit here. And I do just want to give a quick overview about this. This is not made for advanced financial accounting. We don't do double entry accounting. If you're familiar with that, it's not a competitor to QuickBooks or something like that. This is more of general tracking. You can track funds. You can track collections and donations, and basic fund management expenses and things like that. It's not really made to do full-on accounting in the system. So analyze it, see if it's going to meet your needs, and use it if it does. So here at the top, we have a couple shortcuts. We can see the total collections, and a collection is basically, when the plate is passed in church, that would be considered a collection. Anytime you are taking donations, you can see total expenses and some pending alms requests. We'll take a look at those shortly. So let's go into collections. We can see a graph here of recent collections. Currently, we just have one in the system, but we'll hop into this, and this will show us all of our collections. Right now, it's just filtered by submitted collections. If I unfilter, we can see there's another collection here that is in a draft state. So when you create a collection, it goes into a draft state by default until you have it finalized, and then you go ahead and submit it to once it is finalized. And once it's submitted, it really can't be changed unless you amend the collection. So let's go into the draft collection here. We'll go through the process of creating a collection and submitting it. So here we have a date assigned. Oops, let me refresh that. We have a date assigned for our collection. We can link the collection to a specific function or event that's happened or is happening in the church. And we can add some notes for the collection. And then we put our expected total here. So this is kind of like your control. If you know how much money you've received, you put that total here. And then down here, we'll track individual donations. And then the individual donations are totaled here. And you should come up with a zero balance. If you don't, then either your total amount was off or the amount that you calculated in all the individual donations was off somewhere. Now here, this shows you a breakdown in this collection, which funds are going to be receiving the donations. So in this collection, the general fund is receiving $190. And you can see each one. These are automatically updated as well. And so are these. So this breaks it out by how much you've received via cash or check. But you'll see these update automatically based on which donations are entered in this table. So this is the main data entry table. You enter an amount. You enter the payment type, either cash or check by default. If it's a check, you can put a check number in and which fund that donation is going to. By default, it will be the general fund, and which person donated that money. So it's pretty simple. You go right down the list, enter all of them in. Now, if you do have someone who writes a check and they say, I want $100 to go to the general fund, but $50 to go to the missions fund, for example, you can create another entry with the same check number and just split out the dollars and the funds. So that's how you would handle that situation. We can just take a look at this. We'll put in a $11 donation, and we'll see these numbers up here will change. So what we're going to do is we're going to do $11 cash donation. And so the check is grayed out. And we're going to add this to the missions fund. Okay. And right now we see $136 up top. If I were to clear this out, put $0, tab out, 125. So these totals up here are updated in real time, as are these totals here. So if I put $10 back in here, then we can see, we have a $10 imbalance. So our expected total is off. Go ahead and save this. All right. And now our totals are all up to date. We have an imbalance here, so just make this balance out. Okay, now that we have an imbalance of 0, we could, let's go ahead and save it first. And we can still see it's in draft state. And now we could submit. If we're confident this is all correct, we could go ahead and submit this, and then this will be finalized. We could also, before that case, we could say, let's look at a bank reconciliation report. So this would allow you to match up the totals in this collection with a bank statement. Oh, this is not submitted yet. So let's go ahead and submit this. When we submit this, all of these funds will get updated automatically. Okay. Do we want to permanently submit this collection? Yes. Okay, so we can see the general fund, missions fund, benevolence fund all have been increased by the totals in here. Nice. Now that this is submitted, we should be able to see our bank reconciliation report, and we'd be able to see all the individual donations, cash and check. And if they're check, we can see the check numbers to match up with the bank statement. So that can be handy. Now we're going to take a quick look at our fund here, because we have some fund tracking. So let's take a look at our missions fund. Click over there. And so now we're looking at the missions fund. We can see a description of the missions fund. If there was a start and end date for this fund, you could add it. So if it was like a building project that had to be done by a specific date or started on a specific date, you can track that. This shows you the current balance. This is just a read-only field. You can't change it. And down here, it shows you all of the transactions for this fund. So the most recent one, we submitted this collection. I think it was this top one right here. And $135 was added to the missions fund. So pretty easy. We could, if we wanted to, manually delete that transaction. But generally, it's best just to let the system add and modify the transactions as needed. So this way we have an audit trail. Okay, so that is the funds. If we go back to the fund list, we can see all of the funds here. And if we go back to our finance module, we can come down here and also get a nice little chart of each of our funds and their current balances. Okay, one more thing we need to take a look at are the expenses in the system. So we can, collect funds using collections and track the donations, but we also can track expenses so we can see how we're doing financially. So here we have a list of expenses filtered by submitted as well. So if we go into a specific expense, we can see what an expense looks like. There's a title, there's a specific type of expense. So if there's a, for all the missionary supports, you can create a type and track a specific type of expense over the course of a month or a year. It's good for filtering. You can associate an expense with a specific fund. So that way those funds are being tracked and shows all of the expenses associated with the funds. And also I should mention too, if we go to this type you can specify a parent expense type in here. So you might have a situation where maybe one expense is like waste management, but then you could have a child expense of trash and another child expense of recycling. And each of those could have waste management selected as a parent type. And then you can run reports on the parent type and get the sum total of all of the child expenses. So a little bit more of an advanced feature there, but I wanted to make you aware of it. All right, and we can see here this expense has already been submitted. So someone clicked save and they verified it and they clicked submit and it's been submitted. Here we can also see that this expense is linked to a fund, which is the missions fund. I can click on that. It shows us it's filtered down just to show the missions fund. We can go over there and we can see our expense right here in the system. Okay, and you can always make comments here as a church manager. You can say, hey, I'm not sure why this balance is so high, blah, blah, blah. And then if you needed to make any adjustments, there is an option on the finances module here to create a fund transfer. This can be needed often. Maybe you need to increase your missions fund to pay your missionaries from the general fund. You can create a transfer. You could say, let's transfer some money from the general fund to the missions fund, $100, add a note about it, save it. And again, all financial transactions need to be submitted. This is just in a draft state. So you could put it in a draft state and then you could say, okay, let's have the treasurer confirm this. We could assign this to Mary. Maybe she's the treasurer. And you could say, add a comment down here for Mary and say, can you approve? And when we do this, Mary is assigned to this and she will see this on her dashboard when she logs in and she would see the comment and then maybe she would come in here and say approved and she could then submit it herself, or we could submit this. And when we submit the transfer, we can see we transferred $100 from this fund to this fund. And these fund names will be updated to show the proper names soon, but we can click on the fund to see missions fund. And here's our fund transfer right here coming in. And our balance was updated. So that's pretty much it for fund management. It's simple, but it does work. We can run reports on things. If you need extra reports, you can see get a report on all the fund balances easily there. You can also see all the expense reports, specific donations. You can give reports for people like year-end giving. You can see totals here. One more thing we should cover is the alms request. The alms request is a financial request from someone. So maybe someone needs some financial support from the church. They can create an alms request from their portal. Take a quick look at that. So from their account, they would be able to go to alms requests. They would see all the alms requests they've made. They could make a new alms request for a specific amount. Maybe they need $100 and they can't change the status. The status is just pending. And you could say the person making the request and the person who would receive the funds. So usually it would be the same person. Right? And it could be a family too. You could say we're making the request for a family or a missionary. And they would be able to submit an alms request. And that would show up in their list view. And if we go back over to the church management side, a church manager would be able to see, oh, there's 2 pending alms requests. Let's take a look at those. And here's the one that was just submitted. So we can go in there. And on the management side, we can see a few extra fields. We can see an associated expense field and an expense type. So you could create multiple expense types or just use the benevolence default. And you could say a specific expense. You could create a new expense for this, or as you can see here, after the alms are distributed, you can click the create expense button above to automatically create an expense. So let's go ahead and change this to distributed. So we went ahead and we approved it, and we gave Rachel Cooper the $100 to help her out with her car troubles. Click save, and it's going to prompt us right now. Would you like to create an associated expense? We could say yes, or no, we could hold off. But in this case, let's go ahead and do it. And we can see the benevolence fund has been reduced by $100 automatically. And that expense has been linked to this alms request. So if somebody were to come in here, they could see, okay, the alms request has an expense already. We could go to the expense and we can see which fund it was taken out of and on which date. And you can always see too over here who was the person that made these specific documents. So there's always the audit trail. All right, I think this video has gotten long enough, but I did just want to go over those financial module features with you. If you think there's anything missing, or if you have any recommendations for adding here, definitely drop us an issue on our GitHub, or a comment on this video, or definitely if you want to come over to our matrix chat, and I'd be glad to chat it up and talk about some potential features, or if you'd like to contribute to our project, we're always looking for contributors. So until next time, we'll see you later.